soldiers, sailors, and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force. You are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened. He will fight savagely. But this is the year 1944. Much has happened since the Nazi triumphs of 1940-41. The United Nations have inflicted upon the Germans great defeat in open battle, man to man. Our air offensive has seriously reduced their strength in the air and their capacity to wage war on the ground. Our home fronts have given us an overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions of war, and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us all repeat the blessing of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking.
Sound like the moment the world changes. This is Omaha Beach. Today, it's a paradise. Families picnic here, children build sandcastles. But 80 years ago, this was the deadliest place on Earth. June 6th, 1944. D-Day. We all know the story, right? We've seen the movies. Saving Private Ryan, The Longest Day. We know the basics. Allied soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy to fight the Nazis and liberate Europe. But the story you think you know is just the final scene of a much larger, much stranger, and much more incredible play. The real story of D-Day isn't just about bullets and boats. It's about phantom armies, fake radio signals, coded crossword puzzles, and the unbelievable gamble that saved the modern world, and it all hinged on one thing: a lie. A lie so big, it fooled Adolf Hitler himself. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you will see the largest invasion in human history in a completely new light. To understand D-Day, you first have to understand Operation Fortitude. This was the single greatest deception in the history of warfare. The Germans knew an invasion was coming. It was obvious. Just look at a map. The logical place to cross the English Channel is here, at the Pas de Calais. It's the shortest distance. It's what you would do. It's what I would do, and it's what the German High Command was 100% certain the Allies would do. So, the Allies decided to agree with them. Meet the 1st U.S. Army Group, or FUSAG. It was a massive invasion force. It had divisions, tanks, artillery, aircraft. It had a brilliant, hard-charging commander, General George S. Patton. There was just one problem. It didn't exist. FUSAG was a ghost army, a phantom force created to pin down Germany's best troops in Calais, far away from the real target, Normandy. The Allies built entire fake camps in southeastern England. They parked hundreds of inflatable rubber tanks in empty fields. They built plywood airplanes and fake supply depots. They even hired a sound company to broadcast the sounds of construction and tank movements over massive loudspeakers. And the masterstroke? They leaked fake radio chatter, thousands of messages, all carefully designed to be accidentally intercepted by German spies, all talking about tide charts and troop movements for Calais. They put Patton, a general the Germans both feared and respected, in charge of this fake army. But even crazier, they found a British actor who looked exactly like General Montgomery, flew him to Gibraltar, and had him parade around in public just to make the Germans think Monty was focused on the Mediterranean. It sounds insane, like a Hollywood script, but it worked. While Hitler kept his best panzer divisions waiting for a ghost army at Calais, the real invasion force, over 150,000 men, 7,000 ships, was sailing for Normandy. The real target wasn't one beach, but 5, a 50-mile stretch of coastline, divided into code-named sectors. To the west, the Americans had Utah and Omaha. To the east, the British had Gold and Sword, and the Canadians had Juno. And this is the first thing we often get wrong. D-Day was not just an American operation. It was a massive international coalition. British, American, Canadian, French, Polish, Norwegian, and Australian forces all played critical roles. For some, the plan worked perfectly. At Utah Beach, thanks to a strong current accidentally pushing them 2,000 yards south of their target into a less defended area, the U.S. 4th Infantry Division got ashore with relatively few casualties. The commander on the scene, Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt, Jr., son of the president, famously said, "We'll start the war from right here." At Juno, the Canadians faced a heavily fortified seawall. The first wave of troops was cut down, but with incredible courage they pushed through, clearing house to house in bloody fighting, and advanced further inland on D-Day than any other Allied unit. But then there was Omaha. The planners called it Bloody Omaha, and it was. Almost everything that could go wrong did go wrong. First, the pre-invasion naval bombardment completely missed its targets. The German bunkers, dug high into the cliffs, were untouched. Second, the rough seas swamped most of the amphibious tanks, the secret weapon that was supposed to give the infantry cover. They sank to the bottom of the channel, many with their crews still inside. The men of the 1st and 29th Infantry Divisions were dropped in ice-cold, neck-deep water under a hellish storm of machine gun and mortar fire. Their boats were torn apart before they even reached the sand. They were weighed down by 60 to 80 pounds of gear. They drowned. They were shot. They were scattered, leaderless, and pinned down behind the few obstacles on the beach. For hours, the invasion of Omaha Beach simply stopped. It was a total failure. Officers were dead. Men were hiding, terrified, or dying. In the command ships offshore, they openly discussed abandoning the beach and pulling the men out. And then small miracles started to happen, not from grand strategy, but from individual courage. A colonel, half drowned and bleeding, got his men to their feet by yelling, "Two kinds of people are staying on this beach, the dead and those who are going to die. Now let's get the hell out of here." Destroyers, in an act of incredible bravery and desperation, sailed right up to the beach, so close they almost ran aground, to fire their cannons directly into the German bunkers, point blank. And at Point du Hoc, a small group of Army Rangers who had scaled a 100-foot sheer cliff with ropes and ladders fought off waves of counterattacks to destroy the massive guns that could have wiped Omaha Beach clean. Omaha was not won by a plan. It was won by chaos, desperation, and the sheer, bloody-minded refusal of thousands of young men to give up. But the invasion didn't start on the beaches. It started hours earlier, in the dead of night. While the ships were still sailing, over 13,000 American paratroopers from the 82nd and 101st Airborne and 6,000 British Red Devils jumped from planes behind enemy lines. Their job was simple and suicidal: cause chaos. It was a disaster. High winds and anti-aircraft fire scattered the sticks of paratroopers all across the Normandy countryside. Men were dropped into flooded fields, many drowned under the weight of their gear, into the middle of German barracks, and into the town square of Sainte-Mère-Église. One paratrooper, John Steele, famously got his parachute snagged on the town's church steeple. Visual, modern shot of the church with the dummy paratrooper still hanging there. He hung there for 2 hours, pretending to be dead, watching his comrades fight and die in the square below. In that chaos, surrounded and cut off, men like Private First Class Charles de Glopper became legends. His company from the 82nd Airborne was tasked with holding a vital bridge over the Murderette River, but they were surrounded and hammered by a German counterattack. The company commander realized they were about to be overrun. They had to retreat, but someone had to hold the line. De Glopper, recognizing the situation, calmly stood up, walked into the open field, and started firing his Browning automatic rifle, BAR, at the advancing Germans. He drew all the enemy fire, allowing his entire company to pull back to safety. They watched as he was eventually cut down, but because of his unbelievable selfless action, dozens of lives were saved and the vital bridge was secured later. He was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor for buying that vital time with his life. But just like at Omaha, the failure became the strategy. The Germans were completely confused. They had reports of paratroopers everywhere, not a concentrated drop, but thousands of tiny separate attacks. They thought it was a massive airborne invasion, and they had no idea where the main effort was. Small groups of men cut off and alone blew up bridges, ambushed German patrols, and secured the vital causeways that the troops from Utah Beach would need to move inland. By the end of June 6, 1944, the Allies were on French soil. The beachheads were secured. The Atlantic Wall had been broken. It was the beginning of the end for Hitler's regime. But the cost was staggering. Over 4,400 Allied soldiers were killed on that single day. Thousands more were wounded or missing. Total casualties for both sides, including French civilians, topped 10,000. We call D-Day a victory, and it was. But sitting here on this beach, it doesn't feel like a victory. It feels like a sacrifice. It's easy to look at D-Day as a grand strategic masterwork, a story of generals and maps, of arrows on a board. But the 6th of June wasn't won by maps. It was won by 19-year-old farm hands from Kansas who had never seen the ocean. It was won by Canadian school teachers who cleared a machine gun nest. It was won by British paratroopers who held a bridge with nothing but rifles and raw courage. And it was won by the men who never even made it off the boats. The next time you see this footage, don't just see the black and white dots. See the individuals. See the unbelievable bravery it took to run into the gunfire, to climb that cliff, to jump out of that plane, all for the simple, staggering belief that the world was worth saving. Thank you for watching. The story of D-Day is the story of individuals, and there are thousands more we couldn't tell. If you have a family story from D-Day or a name you'd like to honor, please share it in the comments below. And if you found this story as powerful as I do, please consider subscribing for more chapters of history that you were never taught in school.